Welcome back. I see you. Just wait until the end of this episode for a terrifying tale that will have you never wanting to set foot near a lake house again. As always, I've got 3 stories today, all sent in by our listeners. So let's jump right into it with story number 1. A few years ago, my boyfriend at the time and I decided we were going to spend Memorial Day weekend at his family's lake house. His family lived about an hour away, so we left Friday after work to get there early so we could enjoy the lake and relax. His entire family showed up that night, about 20 people or so. We spent the evening swimming in the lake, drinking, grilling out, and telling stories. There were a lot of kids, so we adults kind of spread out along the shore, just socializing and enjoying ourselves. At some point during the evening, we realized that one of the kids was missing. He was only 8 years old. We started yelling his name and calling for him, but no answer. His mom and dad freaked out and took off running up and down the shoreline. My boyfriend and I started searching, too, but we couldn't find him anywhere. The lake was probably about 4 feet deep where he was last seen. And it had been dark for quite a while at this point, so we knew that if he had fallen in and gotten scared, he would have been screaming and hollering by now. There was no sound from him. We decided to go back to the house and check the bedrooms and such just in case he wandered off and fell asleep somewhere. But he wasn't there either. At this point, the mom and dad were crying, hysterically screaming his name, worried that he had been taken or worse. After another 10 minutes or so of searching, my boyfriend and I went back to the shoreline. I was walking along, kicking at rocks, and trying to be strong for his parents, who were sitting nearby, watching us. Suddenly, I saw a rock about 10 feet from shore that was not there before. It looked very strange, like the shape of a body. I walked over to it and kicked it. It moved slightly, and then I felt something move under my foot. I screamed and jumped back, tripping over a root. And that's when I saw the face staring up at me from under the water. I don't remember much of what happened next. I was hysterical, obviously. But someone called 911, and they ended up finding the boy's body in the lake. Apparently, he had snuck off earlier in the evening to go swimming and drowned. I guess he must have gotten tired and tried to tread water, but no one saw him or noticed he was missing until it was too late. His parents still blame themselves, thinking that if they had known he was gone sooner, they might have been able to save him. I feel horrible for them. They are good, loving parents. It was just a freak accident. But I can't help but wonder if he was alive when I kicked the rock. I mean, I wouldn't have hurt him intentionally, but if I had just stayed on the path, I could have easily stepped on him and killed him. Now, that's a weird thought to have. I know it was an accident, and that if I had seen him sooner, I wouldn't have, but I can't shake this feeling that I'm responsible somehow. Story number 2. My daughter and her family have a lake house that was left to them by my son-in-law's grandparents. It's pretty secluded, about 4 miles from the nearest neighbor. This is how the note started. Well, I immediately sat up straighter and paid closer attention. This is what happened. It was about 4 in the morning when they were awakened by screams in the forest near their lake house. Big guttural screams, like nothing I've ever heard. Of course, they were freaked out sitting in the dark listening for any sounds to come in the house. They were even more freaked out when they heard what sounded like hail for about 10 minutes, followed by heavy footsteps near the house. My daughter and her husband started screaming at each other. What should they do? Should they call the police? What if it's someone dangerous? Should they grab weapons? What if it's an animal? Big animals? The commotion outside seemed to be getting closer and louder. Finally, my son-in-law grabbed his rifle that he keeps by the back door. He told my daughter to call 911, and then he opened the door and stepped outside with the rifle. The commotion outside the house had stopped. When he opened the door, he saw that it had stopped raining, and the forest was silent. He stood there for a minute listening and saw nothing. The police arrived about 45 minutes later, but they didn't find anything either. And that was the end of that. Except it wasn't. This has happened several times over the last year. They usually hear it in the middle of the night. It always starts with screams in the forest, then comes heavy rain, and then footsteps near the house. It's always silent when the police arrive. One thing that's really strange is that every time this happens, they find strange bruises on their bodies, mostly on their arms and legs. They also find small pebbles in their bed, like little stones that you'd find in a river. The police have checked everywhere around the house and haven't found any animals that could have done this. There's no bears or mountain lions or anything like that. And besides, those animals don't usually attack people. My daughter and her husband are starting to think that maybe someone is messing with them, but they don't know anyone who would do this to them. So now they're afraid to stay in the house alone. They're both working from home right now, so they keep the house locked up and the lights on at night, and don't even bother sleeping in separate rooms. If they hear noises, they just sit in the living room together and wait until morning. But they can't take this much longer. They're exhausted, and they don't want to live like this anymore. They're thinking about selling the house, but that would devastate my son-in-law's grandparents, who worked so hard to leave this house to them. I feel bad for my daughter and her family. I would be freaked out, too. But the way this story is written, it sounds like it's a hoax. Sorry, but it does. The whole story reads like someone is trying to be too dramatic to get internet points. And as far as the bruises go, they're definitely self-inflicted. I guarantee it. There's no way that someone broke in, beat them up, and then left without taking anything or leaving any signs of forced entry. That just doesn't happen. Oh, and I'm almost positive that the pebbles in the bed are just that, pebbles. They were probably brought in on their shoes or clothes, and then moved into the bed when they laid down. The story is absolutely ridiculous. And now for story number 3, The Hookman. My sister and I used to go camping with our families near a lake in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. The memories I have from those trips as a child are blissful. sitting around the campfire with my family, roasting marshmallows and eating s'mores, hearing my dad tell scary stories, and playing with my sister and cousins. One of these stories that my dad told us was about a man who would hook women in cars along the side of this same lake. This man would drive around the lake at night, looking for unsuspecting victims. He would pull up alongside a car with a woman inside and reach in and grab her. Legend said he had hooks for hands. Then he would drag her into his car, and she would never be seen again. Needless to say, I never looked at cars parked along the side of the road the same way again. Well, fast forward 30 years, and now I'm married with kids of my own. My husband and I decided we were going to rent a cabin on this same lake and bring our 2 young boys. The lake itself is beautiful, and there aren't many houses along the shore. The one that our cabin is on, though, is pretty close to the road and sits way back from the lake shore. To get to the lake, you have to walk about 200 yards through the trees to get to the water. On the second day of our trip, we packed up a lunch and headed to the lake to spend the afternoon swimming, sunbathing, and playing. My boys love the water, and we spent hours swimming and jumping off of rocks. There was only one other couple at the beach, and they were on the other side of the point. We had the entire beach to ourselves. As we're getting ready to leave, I noticed a shiny object lying on the ground near where we were sitting. It was a metal hook. I picked it up and showed it to my boys and told them that it looked like something that might belong to a fisherman. My oldest son wanted to keep it as a souvenir, but I told him we had to throw it away because it looked dangerous. We gathered our things and headed home. That night, we had a wonderful dinner, and the boys played video games while my husband and I relaxed. About 15 minutes after we finished dinner, we heard a loud bang on the front door. My husband and I looked at each other in surprise. We knew there were no houses close enough to us to where someone could be walking by. My brother-in-law, who was visiting, said, "Hookman," jokingly. Of course, we all laughed it off. About 5 minutes later, we heard another bang. My husband and I looked at each other, and we were both relieved when my brother-in-law said, "That's just the wind." We all agreed that whoever the hook man was, he certainly wasn't coming to this part of the lake. In the morning after, of course, not sleeping at all, my husband and I went out to look for the source of the noise. The only thing we found was a big branch that had fallen off of a tree and landed on the ground. We figured that whoever was staying in the cabin next to us had been using the tree as a target for their Nerf guns. After breakfast, we headed home, relieved to have our wonderful vacation to remember, instead of the horrible noise in the middle of the night. I did, however, make my husband promise that if we ever heard anything again, we would pack up and leave immediately. Thanks for watching. If you liked this episode, be sure to check out more stories like these. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye. Welcome back. I see you, Dot. It's me. And today, we are going to be covering for terrifying lake house experiences that will leave you speechless. Make sure to like this video and subscribe so you never miss an upload. Let's get into it. Story number 4, The Gruesome Discovery. A man and his son were out fishing in their inflatable boat when they heard a strange noise. At first they thought it was just some debris floating past them in the water. But then they saw what it really was, a human foot protruding from a large block of ice in the middle of the lake. This discovery was made in February of 2021 by 2 fishermen on Big Stone Lake in Minnesota. The men had been fishing on the lake for several hours without any luck, when suddenly they heard a sound that they couldn't quite place. They described it as someone dragging themselves along the ice, which is about the creepiest thing I have ever heard. After hearing this sound, the men followed the ice floe that was making the noise, and that asked when they saw the grisly sight of a human foot sticking out of it. They immediately contacted local authorities, who sent over a dive team to investigate further. The ice cube containing the foot was brought back to shore, where a full investigation took place. What the men had seen was confirmed. It was indeed a human foot, but it wasn't attached to anything. There was no body or any other body parts to be found. Local divers who helped with the search speculated that the foot had likely broken off during an autopsy and was accidentally released into the lake. While searching for the rest of the body, they found a pair of pants, but still nothing else. Despite extensive searches, the rest of the body was never found, leaving many unanswered questions. What happened to the person whose foot was found? How did it end up in the lake, and how did it break free from its resting place? This case remains unsolved to this day and serves as a reminder of the sometimes dark secrets that our lakes may hold. Story number 3, Dangerous Waters. A group of friends decided to go on a trip to a lake house for a fun weekend getaway. But what started out as a relaxing vacation soon turned into a fight for survival when they encountered an unknown creature in the water. The group was boating on the lake when they noticed something unusual swimming towards their vessel. At first, they couldn't make out what it was due to the darkness, but as it got closer, they began to panic. The creature was massive, almost like a giant canine, and had glowing red eyes that seemed to stare right through them. They tried to get away, but the animal was too fast, and soon they found themselves face to face with the beast. They screamed and splashed in the water trying to scare it away, but the animal just kept coming closer until one of the friends was actually attacked and dragged underwater. They all watched in horror as their friend disappeared beneath the surface. They immediately called for help, and a search party was sent out to look for him. But despite their best efforts, they were unable to find any trace of their missing friend. Some believe that the creature may have been some kind of mutant dog, while others think it could have been a mythical beast, such as a werewolf or a water demon. However, the most logical explanation is that there was a large animal in the lake that had not been seen before, and the witness' fear caused them to exaggerate its size. Whatever the truth may be, this terrifying encounter serves as a reminder to always be aware of your surroundings when in the wild, and never turn your back on the darkness. Story number 2, Creature Feature. In July of 2020, a terrifying video was uploaded to YouTube, and it quickly went viral. The footage showed a mysterious creature that was filmed by a trail camera at a lake house in North Carolina. In the clip, you can see a large dark-colored animal standing on the wooden dock near the lake. It looks almost like a bear, but it has strange features that make it look more like a canine. The creature is tall and thin with long legs and a pointed nose. Its fur is matted and dirty, and it seems to be staring directly at the camera. Since the video was uploaded, there have been many theories about what the creature could be. Some believe that it's a coyote, while others think it could be a wolf or even a bear. However, none of these theories have been confirmed, and the mystery of the creature remains unsolved. Many people have come forward claiming to have seen similar creatures around the lake, leading some to believe that there could be a pack of these mysterious animals living in the area. If you ask me, it looks like a mutated raccoon. We know raccoons are scavengers, and they are known to steal food and rummage through garbage cans. So I am guessing it came to the dock looking for food. Then, when it realized it was being recorded, it decided to run away. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think it is? Let me know down in the comments below. And story number 1, a nightly visit. A young girl staying at a lake house with her family had an incredibly scary experience. She was woken up in the middle of the night by the sound of footsteps in the attic above her bedroom. She immediately became terrified and stayed under the covers until her parents came to comfort her. Her parents investigated the noise, but couldn't find anything. When the girl heard the footsteps again, they checked the attic once again, but there was still nothing up there. As the nights went on, the footsteps continued to get louder and more frequent until finally they were able to capture the sound on a recording device. The family was shocked to hear what sounded like heavy footsteps dragging themselves closer and closer to the room where the girl was sleeping. To this day, the family has no idea what was making the noise in the attic. Some believe that it could have been a ghost or some other supernatural entity. Others think that maybe an animal had gotten trapped in the attic and was trying to get out. But whatever the real explanation may be, this terrifying story serves as a reminder to never ignore strange noises in your home. Do you guys believe ghosts are real? I do. I'm not gonna lie. I don't love watching horror movies or anything like that. I hate being scared, but I love sharing the scary stuff with you guys, because I know a lot of you love getting scared. So I'm doing you a favor. Maybe that's why I love true crime stories, too. True crime is another thing I'm absolutely obsessed with. I recently started watching this show on Hulu called The Act, and I am absolutely obsessed with it. The series follows the unbelievable crimes of some of America's most notorious criminals, from the bizarre to the brutal. Each episode is a new story, with a new cast of characters, so you get a fresh, captivating mystery to solve each time you watch. What I love the most about the show is how it keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. You never know what's gonna happen next. One minute you might think you figured it all out, but then boom, something totally unexpected happens, and you're left shocked. It's incredibly well written, and the acting is top-notch. The series does a great job of keeping you guessing until the very end. And let me tell you, the final twists are always mind-blowing. Watching this show feels like being an actual detective trying to solve a case. If you're a fan of murder mysteries and crime dramas, then you need to start watching the act today. Trust me, you won't regret it. And since it's on Hulu, you can watch it anywhere, anytime. It's the perfect way to spend a cozy night in. So what are you waiting for? Start streaming today and get ready to be hooked. I promise you won't regret it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Subscribe to my channel.
The ultimate summer getaway is often thought to be a lake house. After all, there is nothing more idyllic than waking up by the water, with the sun shining through the trees and the birds tweeting merrily outside. However, it seems that in reality, many lake houses are cursed, or at the very least, they have a much darker side, which is rarely seen by guests. Today, we'll be uncovering 5 true lake house horrors from around the world where guests were left traumatized forever. Before we begin, be sure to hit the like button for more videos. Also, stick around for No. 2 if you love animals, because this one will make your blood run cold. No. 5. The gruesome discovery. It was probably only a matter of time before somebody found them. And when I say them, I mean the hundreds upon hundreds of animal bones that were found inside of a wall in a holiday home. Yes, that's right. For years, guests had been staying in this home without knowing that there was an entire wall covered in bones, including skulls. This disturbing discovery took place in Minnesota. The homeowner had no idea that the wall had been holding these creepy mementos for so long. They had actually inherited the property from their parents, who built the house themselves. However, when they began renovating the property to make it more appealing for guests, they soon came across something truly disturbing. The homeowner explained that she and her partner ripped down a wall in order to put up shelves and replace the old fireplace. But when they removed the drywall, what they saw inside made them instantly regret their decision. Hundreds of animal skulls and other bones were encased inside the wall. The couple didn't know what to do next. So they called in some experts to help identify the bones. It turned out that many of the bones belonged to deer, but there was also a mix of cats, dogs, rabbits, squirrels, and even a raccoon. But how did these bones get inside the wall? Well, according to the homeowner, her mother had taken great pleasure in killing small animals just for fun. She would then stuff them inside the walls, keeping them there for as long as possible. Imagine sitting on the sofa, watching TV in this house, and suddenly feeling something hard on your arm. You turn on the light and reach over to find a human skull staring back at you. Talk about a nightmare fuel. Number 4, a haunted house. We couldn't have a list of lake house horrors without discussing one of the most common fears of renting a lake house: ghosts. Believe it or not, there have been many reports of haunted lake houses around the world. In fact, there are even tour groups that organize ghost tours of famous lakes. One of the most well-known haunted lake houses can be found in the Catskill Mountains in New York State. The lake house goes by the name of the Awaba. Built in 1835, the lake house has played host to some pretty interesting guests throughout its lifetime, such as Civil War General George Thomas. But it's said that he never left. That's right. Many believe that George Thomas met his match at the lake house and now refuses to leave. Over the years, guests have reported hearing regular footsteps, piano music, strange humming noises, and even seeing the ghost of a little girl in a Victorian nightgown. Some people even claim to have experienced paranormal events while staying in the house, including scratches, bites, shaking beds, and even full-on ghostly apparitions. Even though it's considered one of the most haunted lake houses in America, people still flock to stay here every year. Maybe they're just trying to catch a glimpse of a ghost. Number 3, killer algae. Imagine spending the hot summer days swimming around in a beautiful crystal clear lake. After a few hours of paddling around and splashing in the water, you decide to head back to your lake house for a barbecue. But once you start eating, you notice that something is wrong. Your mouth starts to go numb and your lips swell up until you can barely breathe. What just happened? If you guessed killer algae, you'd be right. In recent years, killer algae has become a big problem in lakes all over the world. The algae is known scientifically as cyanobacteria. It gets its nickname because the algae produces toxins that are dangerous for humans and animals alike. If ingested, this algae can cause vomiting, diarrhea, skin lesions, respiratory problems, liver damage, and even neurological problems. On top of this, the algae can produce cyanotoxins, which can be extremely poisonous and even deadly to humans. If inhaled, these toxins can cause eye irritation, sore throat, cough, fever, chills, and even seizures. According to National Geographic, almost half of the lakes they tested in the US and Canada contain toxic algae blooms. Now you may be thinking that this sounds absolutely terrible, but it's not uncommon. In fact, toxic algae blooms are a natural occurrence in lakes all over the world. However, things started getting bad when humans began dumping fertilizers and sewage into lakes and rivers. This caused algae populations to skyrocket. This means that if you're planning to rent a lake house in the future, make sure to check if there has been any recent news about toxic algae blooms in the area. Number 2, animal attacks. Renting a lake house is perfect if you love being outdoors. After all, you get to spend your days swimming, boating, fishing, hiking, and simply enjoying nature. But you may want to watch your step when you're out exploring, because some animals will attack without warning. Take, for example, the Ogopogo monster. The mysterious creature is said to live in Lake Okanogan in British Columbia, Canada. Witnesses describe the beast as being similar to a seal, but with the body of a horse and one or more humps. Despite multiple sightings of the beast, no conclusive evidence has ever been found. But this hasn't stopped people from trying. In 1926, a Carl L. Schuster decided to take matters into his own hands. He bought a boat and spent a total of 17 days searching the lake for the beast. He eventually caught up with something, however, and when he pulled it from the water, the crowd gasped. Carl had just caught the carcass of a baby elephant. As it turns out, the elephant had been abused and then released into the lake. Talk about anticlimactic. Unfortunately, this wasn't the only animal-related horror to take place in a lake house. In 2011, 7 kayakers were attacked by a shark while on a trip in Australia. The shark bit one of the kayaks, sending 4 people into the water. 3 of these people suffered serious injuries and had to be airlifted to the nearest hospital dock. 1. Drowning horror. Most people consider drowning to be one of the scariest ways to die. After all, it's slow, painful, and you're completely helpless as it happens. It's no wonder that drowning is the #1 cause of death at beaches and pools around the world. But did you know that many people drown while renting a lake house? Every year, thousands of people drown in lakes all over the world, and many of these people are visitors to a lake house who don't know the area well. In fact, one of the most famous drowning incidents in history took place at Lake Tahoe in 1999. A young woman named Erin Hansen and her friend Matthew Carrington had been celebrating Memorial Day weekend in a cabin near the lake. At around 2 a.m., the 2 friends decided to go for a swim. They jumped into the freezing cold water and immediately started struggling. The water was just too cold, and they both became hypothermic. Even though they managed to get themselves upright, neither of them had the strength to call for help. Their bodies were found the following morning, floating face down in the lake. Sometimes drowning isn't even the fault of the renter. In 2014, a group of friends were renting a house on a lake in Wisconsin. The group noticed that the railings on the dock were old and dilapidated. So they decided to take matters into their own hands and remove them. Just as they finished removing the handrails, one of the renters walked right into the water and fell. Although his friends tried their best to save him, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Which of these stories scared you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to like this video for more scary stories. Thanks for watching. The calming lapping of waves against the hull of your boat, the shimmering sun reflecting off the water, the cool breeze carrying the sweet scent of pine, and the inviting crackle of a bonfire. Nothing beats spending a relaxing day at the lake with your friends and family. In fact, if you're lucky enough to own a lake house, you get to enjoy these sights and sounds every day. But sometimes this paradise can turn into a nightmare in mere seconds. You may think that your lake house is a safe place for you and your loved ones, but it can easily turn into a death trap. Here are 3 terrifying true stories of lake houses gone wrong. Story number 3, the coffin case. On June 27th, 2016, 14-year-old Kylan Clark was celebrating his birthday with his friends and family at their lake house in Minnesota. Before heading to the lake, he and his mom, Jessica, had agreed to buy him a new pair of shoes from the nearby Walmart store. But when they arrived at the store, Jessica found some more affordable shoes for him, and he accepted them without complaining. Then it was time to head to the lake. When they arrived, there were other kids already waiting in the dock for them. After taking a few jumps off the dock, Kylan went to change into his swim trunks. His mother watched from the shore as he and the other kids played Marco Polo and jumped off the dock into the water. But suddenly she heard a splash followed by an eerie silence. Assuming that her son and the others were playing a new game, she didn't pay much attention to it. It wasn't until 15 minutes later, when she noticed that nobody came out of the lake and no one answered when she called for them, that she started to get worried. When she finally managed to get hold of the other kids, she learned that Kylan had disappeared. She immediately called 911, and the search for the missing boy began. Despite having lifeguards and scuba divers searching for him for hours, they couldn't find any trace of Kylan. At around 8 p.m., nearly 12 hours after he had disappeared, rescuers found his body in the lake, according to the authorities. The water temperature was only around 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which meant that he probably died of hypothermia. Although the exact cause of the incident remains unknown, many believe that the strong undertow caused by the speedboat of a passing jet skier pulled him down and prevented him from resurfacing. Others believe that he could have been pulled under the water by unseen forces. To make matters even more disturbing, when divers recovered his body from 35 feet underwater, they noticed that he still had both his shoes on, proving that it was nearly impossible for him to swim with those on. What makes this story even more tragic is that this was the very same lake where just 3 years earlier another boy drowned while celebrating his birthday as well. Story number 2, The Hook Man. If you spend enough time near lakes and rivers, you're bound to come across the local legends about strange creatures lurking in the depths. Especially if you're in Louisiana, there are numerous reports of a mysterious creature known as the Hook Man that has been terrorizing people living near the lakes and rivers in this state since the early 19th century. The first documented encounter with the Hook Man was in 1826, when a farmer claimed that he was attacked by a man with a hook for a hand while traveling along the Atchafalaya River. Since then, there have been hundreds of similar accounts from people claiming that they saw a half-man, half-gator humanoid creature that resembles Freddy Krueger with a hook for a hand dragging his victim into the water. In 2012, this legend became a reality for 3 young men who decided to go boating in Lake Martin. These 3 friends were celebrating the end of their high school exams and were looking forward to a relaxing day out on the lake. But their joy was short-lived. As soon as they got onto the lake, they started experiencing engine trouble and were forced to abandon their boat and swim to a nearby island. As night fell, they built a fire and made themselves comfortable for the night. It was then that they started hearing strange noises coming from the lake. One of the boys described it as someone or something dragging itself up onto the bank of the lake and making a loud ruckus. The creature then slowly approached the terrified boys and tried to grab one of them by the leg, but he managed to pull himself back. They then fled from the scene and ran into the woods. When the police searched the area, they found deep gouge marks on the trees, but the boys' whereabouts remained a mystery. Their car was found abandoned on the side of the road leading to the lake, with their clothes strewn across the front seat. To date, their disappearance remains unsolved, and many believe that they were taken by the Hook Man. Story number 1, The Vanishing Boat. Imagine you and your family are enjoying a beautiful summer day in your lake house. Your kids and their friends are playing in the water while you grill some patties for lunch. Everyone is having fun and enjoying the day. But what would you do if all of a sudden a freak storm arises? The sky darkens, the wind picks up, and the lake starts churning like never before. If you don't take shelter fast, this idyllic day can quickly turn into a horrifying nightmare. And this is exactly what happened to the Griswold family. It was July 1994, and Mark and Cheryl Griswold had invited their 2 sons and 5 of their friends over for a day of swimming and skiing at their lake house in Wisconsin. It was going great until suddenly the weather took a turn for the worse. Within minutes, the placid waters of the lake turned into a raging sea. Mark immediately ordered the kids to get to safety while he and his friend Dale stayed behind to bring in the boat. But despite their best efforts, the boat was swept away by the current and crashed into the rocks. Luckily, Mark and Dale managed to free themselves from the wreckage, but the accident left their 2 sons and 5 nieces and nephews in the water. Despite the strong winds and heavy rain, Mark managed to rescue 2 of the children. But he had to let go of one of them when he realized that he couldn't hold on to all 3 of them. The rest of the day was spent searching for the missing kids. But because of the bad weather, the Coast Guard suspended the search and rescue operations for the next day. When they resumed the search, it revealed the grisly details of the accident. The boat had been split in half, and 4 of the kids were found dead inside the wreckage. Only one of them was found alive, clinging onto the overturned hull of the boat. As you can imagine, this tragedy hit the family hard. In an interview with People magazine, Mark said that he still dreams about that day and wakes up in cold sweats. He also said that even though he had survived the ordeal, he felt guilty for not being able to save all the kids. His brother-in-law, Terry Hancock, echoed those sentiments, saying, "I keep replaying the whole thing in my mind, wondering how I could have helped out more." Although this was a horrible tragedy, it does offer us some valuable lessons about safety measures to take during freak storms. Always wear a life jacket whenever you're on a boat, even if it's a calm day. Avoid boating during thunderstorms, as they can lead to sudden changes in the weather. And always have a flotation device handy in case of emergencies. Now it's time to hear from you. Have you ever had a terrible experience at what was supposed to be a relaxing lake house vacation? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos. 5 haunting lake house experiences that will send shivers down your spine. Lake houses are great places to spend time with friends and family, or at least they usually are. The beauty of lakes is that they can be found all over the world and in all shapes, sizes, and depths. But just because they're beautiful doesn't mean they're not dangerous. In fact, some lakes are home to terrifying monsters, ghosts, and other creatures that make your blood run cold. If you want to learn more about the scariest lake houses out there, then stay tuned. We'll take you on a tour of 5 haunting lake house experiences that will send shivers down your spine. So let's get started. Story number 5, The Hook Man. If you thought Jason Voorhees was scary, wait till you hear about the Hook Man, a mysterious figure who has been terrorizing people around Crystal Lake in New Jersey for decades. Legend has it that he lures his victims into the water with promises of sex only to drown them and drag their bodies to his lair. He may look like any ordinary guy at first glance, but if you catch him staring at you from across the lake, beware, because he may just be sizing you up for your next victim. And believe me when I say that no one is safe from the Hook Man's clutches. People have vanished from the shores of Crystal Lake without a trace, and many believe they became another one of his victims. So if you're planning to take a dip in these waters anytime soon, better Google how to escape a crazed killer with a hook for a hand. Just kidding. Maybe. Story number 4, The Ghost Ship. The story of the ghost ship on Lake Tahoe is one that has been passed down through generations of locals. It tells the tale of a majestic schooner named the Lady of the Lake that set sail across the lake's surface one fateful night. The ship was carrying a valuable cargo of silver when suddenly a violent storm struck, causing it to capsize and sink to the bottom of the lake. All aboard perished in the tragedy except for one young girl who managed to escape by clinging to a piece of driftwood. She was eventually discovered by a search party and brought back to shore, traumatized but alive. Since then, sightings of the Lady of the Lake have become commonplace, with many claiming to have seen its ghostly apparition sailing across the lake at night. Some say the ship appears as a warning before a storm, while others claim it's the restless spirits of those who died aboard seeking to find peace, whatever the truth may be. The ghost ship remains an eerie reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath Lake Tahoe's placid waters. Story number 3, The Vanishing Town. In the remote wilderness of northern Wisconsin lies a town that once bustled with life, but now only whispers remain. This abandoned community was once home to hundreds of people who carved out a living from the abundant natural resources of the area. However, as the years went on, the economy faltered and the town began to decay. One by one, residents packed up and left, leaving behind a ghost town that stood as a haunting reminder of what once was. Today, visitors can explore the crumbling buildings and overgrown streets of this forgotten town, imagining the lives that once took place here. Well, there are no longer any permanent residents. The occasional tourist braves the journey to this isolated spot to witness the eerie silence that has fallen over this forgotten corner of Wisconsin. Story number 2, The Green Children. This bizarre mystery began in 1920, when two children who had never been outside of their village showed up on the doorstep of a farmhouse near Ilkley Moor. They were malnourished, covered in dirt, and couldn't speak, but they seemed otherwise unharmed. The couple who found them, John and Mary Constant, took them in and cared for them until they could be sent home. But upon discovering the children's origins, the local constabulary decided to keep them in Ilkley until someone came forward to claim them. Over the next few weeks, the mystery deepened as the children exhibited strange behaviors. They claimed to be from a different country, yet knew nothing about geography or current events. And although they couldn't remember much about their past, they spoke in a language that sounded oddly familiar to the locals. As the investigation continued, rumors spread like wildfire, suggesting that the children may have been the offspring of an alien species. Was this truly the case? Or was there a more earthly explanation for their strange behavior? Story number 1. The Crying Woman. Deep in the woods surrounding Lake Champlain lies a tale that has been whispered around campfires for years. The legend goes that a young woman named Elizabeth Clayton was traveling with her sister and brother-in-law when she was brutally murdered by a group of soldiers. Her body was tossed into the lake, never to be recovered. Now, those who venture too close to the water's edge at night claim to hear the sound of a woman crying, said to be the ghost of Elizabeth Clayton searching for peace. The story has been passed down through generations, each telling adding a new layer of detail to the haunting narrative. Some say that if you listen closely, you can still hear her mournful cries echoing across the lake. Others claim to have seen her spectral form walking along the shoreline, forever searching for answers. Is there any truth to these chilling tales? Or are they simply the product of overactive imaginations and campfire smoke? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more creepy content. Thanks for watching.
Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to my channel.